ourselves in, elevate, and start entering legs. This is like super classic, but the issue with this is over time, and the higher the level, the harder it is to get a pulling motion, all right? So instead of playing with just one big pulling motion, we're gonna play with the push and pull, right? It always comes back in jiu-jitsu. We always talk about like push and pulling. But the idea is just to force our opponent and get closer to him, and then force him into a dilemma where he has to either commit his weight and then we're under him, or commit back to try to push us back and then we off-balance him, all right? So it's all gonna start with off-balance. So we're just gonna start from a regular knee shield position here, where I have like frames on the inside. So if my partner tries to put weight on me, I can try to kind of sustain the position. I don't wanna be pushing at all time, because if he gets like the frame out of place, he can start passing my guard, all right? So what I'm gonna do is, from this position, I'm just gonna aim to get a wrist control. I'm gonna scoot myself out a little bit, just to give me space for me to insert butterfly hook on the inside. So we're going from kind of a knee shield position to a half butterfly position, all right? Now this gives me inside position. So my partner doesn't have the incentive of committing towards me, because if he does, I can just kind of start like getting under him, okay? So as we get, so I'm scooting out, I get my butterfly in. Now I'm gonna start getting into kind of an arm drag pulling action. If my partner doesn't react, once again, I can start bringing him on top, okay? So most of the time, as they feel the drag, they're gonna start pushing back or sitting back, okay? Every time I feel this, I'm just gonna release and start getting with an overhook on the second leg, okay? And now we're in a position where we're very close, we dominate the inside position, and the first entry we're gonna hit is just my partner. A lot of people will start committing on a crossface from here, all right? They wanna flatten you out, they wanna put you on your back. But because we're not only having the inside position, but we're close to our opponent, as they put and commit the weight here, I'm gonna use my cross grip that I have right under, bring my knees to my chest, and send them all the way on the other side, where I can now connect to the leg. That makes sense, all right? So we're just gonna start with the entry. I'm just gonna replace this. Where we're in a half guard knee shield position, all right? Make sure I have a good connection. My partner's putting a bit of pressure, I can sustain it. Now, I scoot out and I insert my butterfly hook on the inside. I go at the wrist and into a drag. I start pulling to bring my partner on top. If it works, good for me, but most of the time we get a pullback reaction. Instead of trying to pull him in, I'm gonna release the wrist and go elbow deep on the knee. As my partner commits now on a crossface, because I have inside position, let's just go back a second, as soon as I feel the pressure, I bring my knee to my chest here, and I send him all the way, pushing with my cross grip and pushing with my left foot. And now I can enter just a regular Ashi, which we're gonna see different entries and finishes after. But I just want you guys to get there, and then from there we'll be able to navigate into our finishes. Sounds good for everyone? 3, 2, 1. Crossface, especially when they understand that we have the inside position here, right? Even if he like commits on a body lock or something, like because I have inside position with my knees, it's fairly easy for me to bring my knees to my chest and elevate. So the idea was that we use the fact that he pushes into us to send him the way where he's pushing. Now the issue is, we're going to have a lot of people that will just deny your leg locks by really sitting heavy and kind of pushing onto you. Like if I'm trying to pull him in and he just push, it's not going to happen, right? So we're going to start with the same idea where I scoot a little bit out, and for those of you who are wondering, my knee needs to be on the outside. Don't be tempted of putting your knee here, you're going to get your knee smashed, and for a guard player it's hell to have knees on both sides. So I make sure my knee's on the outside. Now, I start the same action of like trying to pull him in, right? Now, he defends by pulling back, so I get my overhook. But this time my partner sits again, and he's like pushing onto my chest. So as I try to bring him in, there's no way it's happening. So instead of trying to pull him in, I'm gonna go where he's sitting, all right? So we have an opponent that's kind of pushing and denying us to enter the leg. So look, there's no way for him to base on the far side or on my right side with this leg because I'm covering it, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start elevating with my left, and I'm gonna look to send him out there where he has no base, okay? So He's sitting heavy, I'm trying to pull. I go into an elevation. Let's keep a strong base here where you try to stay on top, exactly. So that off balance, my goal is not necessarily to sweep him. If I do get a sweep, let's say you fall to a hip, I can always like start coming up, right? Which is great. I could reset into a leg, or I can start my guard passing sequence. But most of the time, as I off balance my partner, so I'm heavy here, I'm trying to pull him in, he doesn't, he's pulling me back. I can use a hand underneath the armpit like a C grip. I elevate and I send him where he has no base. He stays heavy on top, so this is an off balance, it's not a sweep. As he pushes back, I bring my knees to my chest and into the same sequence we just did. We're going to start entering Aoki's lock right after, which I think they're overlooked a lot right now, so I think it's a good tool to have. But let's get into a leg by having more than one sequence, okay? So, turn around. So, start getting my half butterfly here. I get into my pulling. Doesn't work. I try to get underneath him. It doesn't work again. He's sitting, see how he's sitting back and pushing? You don't want to use strength in that position. You want to just off-balance him a little bit. So I'm going to start posting, elevating to the side and pushing. All right, see, I'm activating my left butterfly. Now, as he pushes back into me, I bring my knees to my chest. In the same manner as we did earlier, I expose this leg, all right? All the weight is on the right leg, so it's easy for me to start exposing, and then we'll have attacks from there. Sounds good for everyone? 3, 2, 1. So we're going to do the same entry, like whichever, I'll let you choose the entry. Once we get there, we're going to see how we can, when we have an opponent that's kind of facing us, okay? He's not running away from our leg lock. He's staying and kind of facing us, how we can go into Aoki's lock, all right? I mentioned how underrated I believe they are. One of the reasons is because people are thinking always about heel hooks. Aoki's lock is like a heel hook, but a bit different, and it's very devastating. If you do it right, I'll show the mechanics, it goes on fast. Right? Last weekend I had two finishes by Aoki's hook, something I've been working on. That's why I'm teaching it right now. I've been working on it for a few weeks on this, and if they're done right, they just come on like so fast. So obviously, be gentle to your partner, unless you don't like them. You do you, but I'll be gentle.
And you your partner.
Uh-oh. You got some friction
behind the camera.
Not today, he's helping me, okay? So I'm scooting out, all right? We're all doing this really great, okay? One detail I mentioned to Igor actually earlier is like, if the guy's sitting back here and you start off-balancing and you want to like commit even more, you can release the half guard and plant your foot to really go upside down, all right? That's always an option. But for now, you hit the entry you want, partner comes back, knees to chest, and we get into our Ashi Rani. All right. First of all, what's a Aoki lock? It's like an ankle lock but modified, and it's actually a twisting lock, so it's probably illegal in most competitions. So, joke aside, like what we're trying to do is push the foot up, turn it, and keep his heel on my belly. All right, that's what I'm looking to do. How am I going to do that? Okay, so as soon as I land it there, I'm going to actually insert what we call a short hook. Okay, now don't go too deep, don't go too shallow, just right here, okay? My knee is going to be by the knee, okay? This is an important detail. And now I want to use my short hook to see how I can lift the leg here. This is really strong because I'm using my quad to lift the leg. So I'm going to start lifting the leg, and my left hand is going to go underneath the knee right here to help me rotate his heel on top of my belly. Okay, so look, I lift, help myself with my left hand, and I turn his heel underneath my belly. Now the second action is me bringing my elbow deep underneath the Achilles, because I'm trapping the toe. If you're not trapping the toes and you're lazy, he's just going to push back in. Okay, so I lift, hand underneath, I trap the toes. As he goes to push back in now, it's not going to happen. Okay. Now, second thing is, what do I do with my second hand, right? I'm going to go and grab kind of the Kimura grip and the shin, okay? Now, what I'm looking to do is not stay on my back. I'm going to start turning my body towards the left side and I'm gonna do a crunching motion, okay? We gotta think of it as a guillotine. Whenever you grab a high elbow guillotine, you're actually crunching your elbow towards your center line and you're crunching your side ribs. Okay, so I'm doing the same idea. I'm gonna start pushing with my knee into his shin, and my upper body is gonna start rotating towards the other way, okay? So sensibly, I'm turning his foot this way. I'm preventing the hip from moving, preventing the knee from moving with my short hook. Okay, so let's see it from our beginning. I get into my Ashi. The first thing I'm looking for is get my short hook. Okay, if you have a hard time getting the short hook, just stretch your hips out. Okay, so if I feel I'm not flexible enough or whatnot, look, I'm not trying to push my partner, but I'm using this to stretch out a little bit to the side, insert my short hook, left hand goes underneath the knee, elevate, catch. Now this is a very important part. If you're lazy here, you can maybe toe out, like gets his toe out, exactly, and you lose the position. So make sure that as you elevate, you're crunching deep with your elbow. And you can even bring your elbow inside your thigh. As he goes to push back, it's not gonna happen, okay? Now, I get my Kimura grip on the shin. I start turning my body towards the left, pushing with my knee, bringing the toes back for a strong ankle lock and knee finish. Okay, I'm just gonna turn it on the other side here so you guys can see it. So, I just landed here, all right? If I can insert my hook, I feel I'm stuck. Look, I just stretch him out, get my hips out to the side, insert my hook right underneath. I'm gonna use my left hand underneath the knee. Because if I just try to get here, maybe he points his knee down, and then, yes, there's a heel hook, which we're gonna see after, but it might be hard to get the Aoki. So I help myself, and I really want it to be resting on the belly. I catch a figure of 4, or a Kimura grip, or a figure of 4. I prefer Kimura grip personally. I push with my knee. This has to be said. Knee on your side, push with your knee, turn, toes in, get a strong finish. All right, guys, 3, 2, 1. Getting up, kind of like trying to strip your hook, because obviously, like as you catch it, a lot of people will try to come up and defend. So it's a good way to send the person back on their butt and then finish the Aoki. One thing I can't mention enough is getting used to bringing the elbow in towards the center line. Okay, I was mentioning how it goes with a high wrist, right? If I get a high wrist and my elbow is kind of easy, like lazy, you can kind of like circle his head out, etc. But like if I really get my side crunch and my elbow centered on my stomach, it's really hard for him to hit like a circling motion with his head. All right, it's the same idea with the foot. I'm trying to, as soon as I catch it, I get used to doing this. Now, I'm just gonna start from Ashi. So, now this time, get my short hook again. I start exposing the Aoki here, and the other thing too is if you can bring your elbow on the inside of your thigh, it's even stronger, because as you try to like kind of push it back in, like you're really just engaging inside. Now this time my partner is going to kind of push on my foot here, and he's going to start coming up, okay? Now the issue with this is, yes, maybe if he stays there I can like really turn and finishing, but the other problem is he can start backstepping, yeah, exactly, and kind of changing the angle, getting the short hook out, okay? So every time I feel my partner starting to come up here, I'm going to go and shoot this leg all the way over here, and see how I can like kind of hit a bridge where I put my partner down. It's the same idea as if you're standing up. The same idea as like if he starts like walking out here, I'm just actively using my hip and pressure on the hip to kind of turn his leg a little bit with the short hook. Got it? All right. So with the short hook, the idea is that my hook is kind of extending over there. See how like it makes him walk, and then my second leg is just pushing, and then as we fall, I can start going into a turn, yeah, back heeling down, getting a finish. Okay, so what I'm doing is like, obviously the better finish is the first one, because I'm really in a good position where I can do counter pressure, where I go one side then the other. This time as he falls, I make sure I keep a strong back heel so I can finish my counter pressure. Okay, so sorry if that wasn't too clear, but once I get here, start exposing the heel, the Aoki. I get my grip, my partner starts coming up, I keep a strong grip. So his knee is pointing outside, so it's easy for me to turn and then use my left foot on the hip to push, extend, force a turn. Obviously be gentle here as you fall, but like I'm trying to hit a back heel, so I'm connected to the hips, and then keep that rotation we have. So the back heel is very important, because if you're kind of lazy with your legs and you just turn the ankle, the person can maybe spin, and it happens to me sometimes. Happened to me this week with Gerald actually. Like I was getting a good Aoki lock, and as I started going, the guy started spinning, and I couldn't really attach myself to the hip, so I lost it. But always a possibility to come back up. At least you're not in the worst position at the very least. All right, so just try to get a good back heel on the hip, and then get a good finish. Sounds good? 1, 2, 3.